Captain Slug, Stardate 23. Welcome to the Captain Slug, where we trek our way through all of Star Trek. I'm here in 10 forward. I'm joined as always by my colleague, Mr. Mark O'Neill. I'm Eddie Edwards. Hi, Mark. How's it going?
Hello, Eddie. Yeah, great, fine. Not much to report this week, unfortunately. I don't have a lot of chat. I say now, obviously you'll hit out with something that will make me go, well, hold on a minute. I have 15 minutes worth of things to say about that.
Well, I do want to, unfortunately, I feel we've got to talk about Star Trek Picard.
Right.
Given as a podcast, what we have, a certain character that we've regularly championed. I feel I should point out, have you seen the announcement of who's going to be in the next season of Star Trek Picard?
The full Enterprise bridge crew, right? Minus Tasha Yar.
Let me read the full list and see if you notice anything.
Right.
It's LeVar Burton.
Right.
Michael Dorn.
Yep.
Jonathan Frakes.
Yep.
Gates McCadden.
Yep.
Marina Sirtis. And Brent Spiner.
Who's
you
missing?
might notice a name missing from that list. I don't know if you've watched any of the promotional material for any of the Picard stuff, but it's a lot of people sat around over Zoom being interviewed by the wonderfully charming and incredibly nice Mr. Will Wheaton.
Oh.
Who apparently is the only one who hasn't been called and presumably is contractually obligated to do the next season's promotional material. Where he has to congratulate all of his old friends on getting to work on this project again.
Oh. That sucks. And what's he got going? Do you know what I mean?
It's not like it's, I mean, if anything, he's
not
more busy
busy
than the rest of them. I would guess. But the only reason he's more busy than the rest of them is he was doing promotional stuff for Picard.
Yeah. That's shocking. Should we try and get him on this? We can't pay him, but I'm sure he'll like it. I'm sure he'll be like, I really like this premise that it's the two of you are on the Enterprise and just discussing the week's events. But I like how it takes the all of season 1 for you to kind of get that on. And you still really haven't gotten it down. I like that. I like the messy. I like the grittiness of it. I like how guerrilla it feels. If
you're listening to this and you know Will Wheaton, let him know we'd love to have him on.
Yeah.
Or if you are Will Wheaton, then you wouldn't have to tell yourself that.
No.
You'd know that now. So come on down. And we'll treat you with a level of respect that the people who are making Picard clearly aren't.
Oh, God!
It's like they've been talking to him while they've been working out the contracts.
Yeah,
like they're being interviewed by him. I just want to say, fuck you, Alex Kurtzman, you two-faced git. And he's gonna have to smile, and he's gonna smile at you and be nice to you and professional throughout the rest of this damn season, where he has to do his little ready room bits to promote each episode, because he's a nice guy and he can do what he's paid to do. You absolute bastards!
And I'm sure that he goes home to Mrs. Will Wheaton, I assume, and he sits down and he says, "Listen, Shirley," I don't know her name. His name. I don't know what Will Wheaton's got going on, but he sits down and he says, "Shirley." It's really getting to me. It's this being nice to Alex Kurtzman. She says, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "Well, at the end of the day, I could kiss this man's arse 4 ways from Sunday. And at the end, if he finally decides that he quite likes me, the one thing that I might get out of this is a cameo in a Transformers movie." And really, is that the way to be living a life?
I've got a genuine pitch for the Picard writers. If you are listening, if you really, really don't like Will Wheaton as much as you apparently don't, why don't you really stick the knife in and have all of these characters come back for Wesley Crusher's funeral?
Yeah, exactly.
Have him died off screen.
No,
show them all crying. Show Beverly Crusher pretending to cry.
And what you really have to do, the way to really, really twist the knife after you've stuck it in, is have it be exactly the same as Tasha Yar's funeral, where there's a hologram version of Will Wheaton, but you never see it on screen. and all of the dialogue is just looped together from different clips that he's said from various episodes over the years. Because surely he has said enough words that you can put together a decent eulogy. I mean, is it a eulogy if you do it for yourself? I don't know. I'm not a doctor of the dictionary, Eddie. But
what they've been doing, Mark, I guess, is they've probably Will Wheaton doesn't know this, but on the promotional material for Picard, they've been tricking him into saying the words that they need him to say for his eulogy. They're going to edit together from that, because that way they don't have to pay him again. It's one of the biggest fuck yous I think in the history of media, especially that if he is gonna. I'm gonna say this right now. I don't think Picard. I watched a couple of episodes of Picard season 1. I don't like it.
No, me either.
From what I've seen, I don't think season 2 looks great. It's just I don't think it's Star Trek-y enough. That's just my take on it. So I'm not going to watch season 3. I am going to watch every promotional interview that Will Wheaton has to do with the rest of the cast of TNG. Like the only way this could be more a kick in the teeth is if at some point in season 3 of Picard they somehow manage to get a reason to have Denise Crosby in it as well.
Or if one of the promotional material adverts is literally just all of the bridge crew get to kick Will Wheaton in the teeth.
Maybe that's their excuse. They're like, well, we would have invited you back, Will, but technically Wesley Crusher never served as an actual member of Starfleet on board the Enterprise, so it just doesn't work thematically. Anyway, we're having Avery Brooks in this season. What? He wasn't even.
Yeah.
He's supposed to.
Well, you know, he's got nothing on Will. He's not doing much. You've got loads of shit, mate. Talking to your friends, Jonathan Frakes and that. Remember how you weren't in any of the movies either? Was he ever in any of the movies?
He's at I think one of the movies.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a wedding.
Nemesis or Insurrection. There's a wedding.
Yeah.
That it starts with, and he's there as a guest.
Right.
Which goes to show that the movies are made by people who haven't watched TNG, because like he goes off with like an 8th dimensional being to travel the multiverse. So I'm not certain how that works out, but I also know that the people who write Picard don't watch Star Trek, because there's a bit where they meet Guinan and she's running a bar in LA, and the bar is the address is number 10 and it's on Forward Avenue, and that's where the name 10 Forward comes from, despite the fact that the name 10 Forward comes because it's Deck 10 Forward section, which is said multiple times throughout the series of Star Trek. So they didn't even bother to just do a cursory run through of TNG. We've put more effort into researching Star Trek The Next Generation than the people writing Picard. Although, in fairness, maybe they started watching it season 1, got like 3 episodes in and went, we can just use Wikipedia.
What's your favourite example of a prequel explaining how something that is either already explained or not important came about? Because mine 100% is the bit in the fucking Han Solo movie where he's running away from a bunch of Imperials I think he's running away from a bunch of generals, a bunch of sort of ne'er-do-wells from Coruscant that are trying to get him. So he runs into an Imperial recruitment centre and runs up to the dude, and he realises, I have to get to the other side of that gate, but the only way I can get through there is to enlist. So he says to the guy, I'm here to enlist. And the bloke replies, what's your name? To which he says, Han. And the bloke goes, well, Han what? Han goes, well, I don't know, I actually don't have a surname. So he goes, well, you're on your own, so Solo. Han Solo. And then title. Fuck off.
Because famously, Mark, in the Star Trek universe, Star Wars universe, nobody has just one name. As we all know, Chewbacca Smith. No, mine is also a Star Wars related one, and it's Metachlorians. I'm a classicist. I like the idea that every time somebody's gone, I sense a disturbance in the Force, I could have just done a blood test. and it's not addressed at any point in the modern prequels. And the other one is the plans for the Death Star being on that planet in the second one. I think it's in Attack of the Clones. You see them like in the background in hologram form, which is one of those little bits that doesn't really add anything, but is like a little nice Easter egg because it's not addressed. It doesn't come up, and it's only a negative thing if, like me, you had read some of the Star Wars books, and that existing very specifically erases the existence of like 7 of your favourite fictional characters.
Yeah.
Because to be a real fucking nerd about this, in the extended universe novels, Qui Zux designed the Death Star. She thought it was mining equipment. She later married to Wedge Antilles.
Oh,
yeah,
that's fun.
Doesn't exist anymore. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. They wanted to put a little thing in the background, and nobody bothered. Nobody working on it had ever bothered to read a fucking Star Wars book. Because who would that matter to, Mark? The people who go see Star Wars prequels. That's who it matters to.
I mean, I don't know what to say, mate. You've really put me in an emotional corner here. I don't know how to comfort you about this.
Shall we just start talking about this episode of Star Trek and hope I get past it?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Because it sounds like the way that I get into not arguments online. I do my best these days to not get into arguments online, or really to say anything to anyone. I just fucking don't say anything. I'll just take things on board. I'll just read things and I'll be like, I don't care. I genuinely like. What difference is it going to make? Like, you know, this idea. Oh well, if you can change one person's mind, it's worth it. It's not. Don't bother. We're all going to be dead. Like, in the grand scheme of the universe, soon. So
even not in the grand scheme of the universe, it's soon.
Yeah,
things aren't going great on planet Earth.
Mate, don't worry about it. So when I see things like people coming up with super convoluted reasons about why in Ghostbusters Afterlife the Ecto-1 has been reverted back to the Ecto-1 rather than the Ecto-1A that it was converted into in Ghostbusters 2, and all these super, complex reasons, or maybe all the equipment on top, they didn't really need it, and maybe the LCD panels were too much drain on the battery, and it's like, well, the reason is that the Ecto-1A is much more recognised. The Ecto-1 is more recognisable than the Ecto-1A, and in a movie that's essentially built around recognising things from nostalgia, obviously they're going to go for the much more popular one. But I don't care anymore, because just do it, Putin. Just do it. No.
Well, Mark,
don't do it. Stop doing it. Stop doing all the things that you're doing. It's bad.
Speaking of dwelling on the past.
Fucking hell. Yep.
That's an actual segue. We got. What do you think of this episode, Mark? Because I don't know if it's a good episode, but it's more of an episode than some of the ones we've watched previously in terms of like structure. Because like Picard is going through a personal thing.
Yep.
And the science fiction events that the Enterprise are going through mirror his own personal emotional journey. Like this was written by someone who cared.
Yeah. That was nice.
Yeah.
I guess the science, and I use the word science with inverted commas so large you'd be able to see them from the Delta Quadrant. But it's complicated enough that you have to pay attention and really think about it. And I like that when it happens in Star Trek.
Yeah.
I like something. Yeah. I like anything that'll distract me from my phone. So, yeah, I was all about it, and I still haven't quite put together how Data figures out which version of him is the correct one at the end.
Yeah, no, I can't work that. I've got some theories.
Yeah.
But so the plot of this episode is time's going weird. Time loops are happening. There's a a distress call, and the distress call comes in from a bloke who, how do I put this delicately? Someone whose wife Picard has fucked. And he's dwelling on that in the past when he was okay, Mark, I need to address this because I did some Googling around some facts about this episode. So this is a woman Picard had a sort of a crazy affair with 22 years ago, it's established. And instead of like whisking her away from her husband, he left her at a restaurant and went back and became a Starfleet guy.
Yeah.
22 years ago. He blames this on being like young and foolish and not really knowing what he wants from life. Picard in Star Trek The Next Generation Season 1 is canonically 59 years old, which means the events of this episode that in the past happened when he was 37. A young, impetuous man of 37. But yeah, it's a slightly weird one because there's a lot of things in this that don't. It makes sense. I think it's a good science fiction episode, but it doesn't make sense as like a Star Trek episode.
Yeah.
Because the scientist is called Paul Mannheim, and he's been like experimenting with time because he's got some wacky, weird theories about like, and people don't take him seriously. So I can only imagine that people in Star Trek are just like, oh no, mate, whoa. Look, we've already got 14 different methods of time travel, which I checked and counted, and that's the number. It's like you think you can invent another one? Crazy.
So his idea of time travel is kind of interesting because he obviously must subscribe to the multi-worlds theory. So the multi-worlds theory is that basically every time you do something, every decision that you make creates by itself a multitude of extra dimensions where other decisions were made.
Yes.
And scientists have it. This certainly isn't something that has been poo-pooed. From what I understand, this is something that a lot of scientists subscribe to as possibly a way that our universe works. And we just experience time as we are only ever in one of those situations at any given moment. And that's what the present is. And his research, basically, he opens a doorway into one of the other versions. And because of the energy spill that's coming through from there, it's kind of fucking up time. And it's kind of, it's looping time and it's making different variants. It's a bit, so it's, what was I talking about? Oh, the woman, back in the past, she was a hard 10.
Yeah.
Is that what it was giving it?
Yeah. The problem is you can't have a conversation like this without it sounding like we're stoned, because it's the kind of conversation that you can only ever really have when you're stoned.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, what if it's multiple branching universes? Wouldn't it be weirder if it's just one universe and it was all determined by the Big Bang and like free will is a myth? And like, there's a like.
Because time is happening all at once. We just experience it as a linear series of cause and effect.
Yeah.
But all time exists somewhere. We're just travelling through it. So
yeah, it gets weird.
This is a great data episode. And
okay, I want to bring up something about that. So, like at the beginning of this episode, Picard's fencing with Bill Hader.
Oh yeah.
And they have like a time loop, and then he gets to the bridge afterwards, and he's like, "What was that?" And then like Data's like, "Oh, it's not just like a thing that was experienced. It's like the computer shows that there was a time jump."
Yeah.
Which is, but wouldn't Data know whether or not it was psychological or if it affected technology because he is technology?
Yeah.
Why would he need to check that on the computer?
And he like specifically later on in the episode says something very interesting. He says that he always experiences time as a constant. So
Yeah.
human beings experience, if you're bored, time appears to move slowly. If you're excited, time appears to move more quickly. Time flies, right, when you're having fun. And he doesn't have that, because he doesn't have emotions. He just experiences all time as this absolute truth.
Yeah.
The thing that got me the most is that this time loop happens, and Picard asks Bill Hader if he noticed it, to which Hader goes, "Oh yeah, obviously." And then he comes up the bridge and he says, "Hey, Bridge, did anything weird and time loopy just happen?" To which the bridge goes, yeah, that was weird, wasn't it? And it's like, sorry, if there's a fucking time loop, the first thing you should be doing is, "Sorry, Captain, there was a time loop on the bridge." Like, did Riker sit there and go and make the decision? Listen. Did he turn around and go, "Look, I can't guarantee that this isn't a button that I pressed, right? So if everyone could just keep that to themselves, that would be great."
Yeah, I would say if there's a time loop, like just because the captain's not on the bridge because he's busy fencing in what looks like a cargo bay, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like because he's busy fencing, like what do you? Yeah, I figure that still as like a person who's acting in charge, you should be able to be like, well, at least yellow alert.
Yeah.
I want to say something as well that I find upsetting about this. Why are all Starfleet officers really good at their hobbies? Like because we know Picard's like a historian. He knows nobody's ever showed him like a historical artifact in all of Star Trek, and he's gone, "No fucking clue, mate." He goes fencing. Wouldn't it be great if like the guy he was fencing with beat the shit out of him at fencing, and then Picard was like, "Well, you've got more time. You're not captaining a Starfleet vessel."
I guess I'm quite lucky to work a job where I have a lot of time on my hands. And I'm not particularly much better at my hobbies than I was. I'm fucking phenomenal at masturbating, but I was pretty good at that.
Are you measuring that by speed or volume?
Both. What I do is
fill a bathtub faster than Mark O'Neill.
What I do is, you remember at the end of Takeshi's Castle, when they're in the little rope, the little cars that drive around, and they have squirt guns, and there's like paper circles that you have to break. I set up a few of those, like one behind the other, in a row of 10. I'm up to 8.
Not bad.
Not bad at all. And obviously, I'm not getting any younger. So, if I'm truly going to achieve my potential masturbatorily, I need to put in the effort now. I can't slack. I want to thank my coaches. They're putting in a lot of effort. My sponsors, all the protein drinks, big up. And most of all, I want to thank God for giving me this natural talent.
I've completely lost track of where we were.
This is a fucking nothing episode, man.
Okay, this is a great installment in our recurring series, Mark, of how the fuck does the holodeck work, right?
Yeah.
Okay, because he goes to the holodeck and he specifically says, "I want Paris on April the 9th, a specific year, a specific cafe." Now, I fully understand and I get that in the future, Google Maps technology has developed to the point where it can pull that up. Fine. But it has the exact people who were there and knows all of their conversations, which seems like massive government overreach.
Yeah, because if it was just procedurally generated, she wouldn't have been there. Because obviously he's going in there to meet her.
Yes.
But, and Laura asked about this, has he programmed that in previously?
Oh. Well, he didn't give a program number. He didn't run program.
Because
bang a French chick.
And and once again, the 24-year-old woman that 37-year-old Picard was apparently going to meet on that day is an absolute 10. And fair enough, we do obviously meet her in the present day, and she's a very attractive older lady, but I don't think she came from that. So also we do learn later that Picard's memory of it is wrong, because Picard remembers it not raining. She says, no, it definitely rained.
But then the holodeck would know what the weather was if it's able to bring up. Yeah.
He specifically asks for the weather, though. He specifically asks for a date, a time, a year, and a type of weather. I reckon he's programmed her in already. I reckon that the holodeck has, and obviously she's blonde, so Riker wouldn't have any of that. He'd walk in and go, well, this chick doesn't know anything about jazz. So I reckon the holodeck works by I imagine it'd be something like Second Life. I don't know if you ever tried Second Life.
I dabbled, and then got weirded out when I saw two people. Like, I get it mostly was sex stuff, but there were people who were like airships, and that's a kink I don't want any part of.
Cheap travel. I can't. I actually dip into it. Not anymore. I don't really do it anymore. But I used to dip into it every couple of years just to be like, I used to use it to test graphics cards and things. But because it's really intensive, even though it looks like shit. But I can't figure it out. Like, I literally can't figure out. Like, my little avatar person looks exactly like the little guy that I started with the exact same outfit, because I can't figure out how to put new clothes on my wee guy. And if you're like, oh, it's dead easy, it isn't, because you go into the menu that says, here are the clothes that you've bought or acquired, and you click on it, and then in his hand there will appear a box with the clothes in, and it's like, well, that's not what I want. I want them on him, because that's a sensible request. Like, do you know what I mean? If you turn into your girlfriend and say, can you wear that thing for me tonight? She's not going to walk out completely naked with it in her hand and go, well, this is acceptable, isn't it? No, that's nonsense. But I think it's probably, the holodeck is a bit like that. I think the holodeck has pre-programmed people in it. And you walk in, and it's like, right, choose your race, gender, age. Like, and maybe you give it references or something. Maybe you because you install a holodeck, right? Yeah. Everyone understands that thing is being used for sex 95% of the time. So I think that everyone on the ship walks in to the holodeck, and the holodeck says, right, what is your ideal? Like, give me 3 examples of, like, the thing that you really like. So you walk in and you're like, all right, here's a picture of Kat Dennings in 2008 Linda Cardellini, and a third option that I can't.
And here's Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman.
Yeah, exactly. And Ana de Armas, and then it goes right, and it looks at all them, and it goes right. So you think they're up here, and then it figures out, based on maybe other people's preferences, what, like, the level, like a sliding scale is.
Yeah, so you can just go in and give me a French 10.
Yeah. Or if you're like, I've just finished work. I've drank 8 pints of coffee today. I had to roll up my sleeves. Just give me an English 4. just something just give me something that's really going to make me hate myself.
I have a question about this as well. If this is a question that only makes sense this question isn't going to make any sense to anyone who has never listened to this podcast, but it will make sense to you, Mark, and I'm glad that I've got someone who will share this with me. If she's French, why doesn't she have an English accent?
Yeah. I also, obviously there is a part of my brain that's going, two fucking, let's face facts, ugly ass white guys
Yeah.
Why the fuck are we? Who the fuck are we to be talking about the relative attractiveness of women? But at the same time, the episode asks us these questions.
Yeah, it does.
How does that work? Like how? You're right. It either has to be a massive security issue, and also, do you know the character in this that I am fascinated by, who has kept?
Oh, I know. I know exactly who you're gonna say.
It's the waiter in the cafe.
Who is a waiter in Star Trek? Right? Money doesn't exist in the society. You don't need to be employed. Like there are replicators. Like what if you get? Maybe the only thing I can work out, and this is the only thing that I can work out, is there's no money.
Yeah.
So like the only thing that's like keeping you like employed as a waiter is I guess that like you have a decent relationship with the cook. Maybe these people take it because maybe being a waiter is fantastic in a society where people don't have their ability to survive linked to how well they can not smack a customer in the face for being a prick.
The only note I have for this entire episode is cafes in a post-scarcity society would be amazing because everyone would only be there because they genuinely like serving people.
Yeah.
Like I legitimately love working in a pub. I think it's the pinnacle of work. There's something about it that just appeals to me so much. Pulling pints, having conversations, mixing drinks, even walking around clearing the bar. There's just something about it that satisfies me more than any other job I've ever had. I fucking adore working in pubs, but they don't pay enough and it's full of cunts.
Yeah.
If I could reasonably guarantee that those two things were not going to be an issue, I would. If pub work paid 35 grand a year, that's all I would do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's like Ben. Like in Deep Space Nine, it's established that Ben Sisko's dad owns a restaurant.
Yeah.
In like New Orleans, and it's just because he loves cooking.
Yeah.
And I'm imagining that like the wait staff are like people who go, no, this guy's a really good cook. His food's amazing. We get to eat it every night as part of like we help him out by taking it to the tables and stuff, and we're genuinely passionate about it. I get it, but this is like a high class French cafe, and like I can only assume that this waiter's doing this because this is his kink.
I don't know about that, man, because we actually know some people who have done wait staff work at some fairly high grade restaurants, and what you would get, because the thing about Star Trek, obviously in a post scarcity world there is no money. Picard himself says we just work for status. Like that's the only we work to better ourselves and for a sense of status. If you run an incredible cafe that the creme de la creme of your local society is coming in to use on a regular basis, and your service is so good, you probably have access to things like information or contacts.
Yeah.
There would be, again, this isn't a very funny episode of this podcast as we just talk about the logistics of how super socialism would work, but there must be some sort of game, and I think it's probably that, or maybe it is his kink. I don't know, man. Like,
there's a lot of behaviour in this episode that can only really be described via the thing of it's someone's kink. Because like the scientist in this, like when he eventually meets Picard, is all like, "Oh yeah, my wife told me about you. I know exactly who you are. I think I'm dying. Take care of my wife," which is some big Will Smith energy.
What if time travel is his kink? And I have a theory about it.
I was gonna say, I love that he does. There's a whole bit in this where it's like, our system worked too well. We tore a crack in the universe, and it's like, that's not Star Trek dialogue. That's Ghostbusters dialogue.
Yeah. I yesterday I had a client who I was gonna work with, and just before our session started, he messaged me to say, I'm really very sorry, I have to cancel. Basically, I booked this as a surprise date with my girlfriend who lives in another country. And that's how we were going to spend her birthday together. And I've just been informed that her friends have thrown her a surprise party. So unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do it. I'm really sorry for the last minute notice. Can I get a refund? And I'm like, yeah, of course, man. Like, yeah, I understand. That's fine. I'll put your refund through. Anyway, enjoy the party. Obviously, he's not going to that fucking party, right? If anything, that party exists. He's destroyed his plans to spend time with his girlfriend on her birthday because she's going to this fucking surprise party. And I said, enjoy the party the way that you sometimes respond to a waiter who says, enjoy your food, and you go, you too, right? And you want the earth to open up and swallow you whole. That's exactly what I want. If someone discovered time travel and could say you could go back to any point in your life, it would be immediately before I press send on that reply to that person. And the worst thing about it is his next message was, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Exclamation mark, smiley face. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Like, oh.
I mean, well, don't worry, he's not going to remember that because his girlfriend's breaking up with him soon. Because, let's just think about this. Her friends have had a surprise party for her, right? So let's say there's like 10 or 20 of her friends have done this. They couldn't all chip in 20 quid to buy her boyfriend a plane ticket and fly him over as part of the surprise. No, they're inviting along that guy they think that she should be with. So
what if she doesn't
he won't
exist?
Even remember his conversation with you.
What if this was like a weird incel date?
What is it? Anime body pillow? It's got a surprise birthday. It's got a return.
No. What if this was a woman who was just being polite to him?
What would you do as a tour guide, Mark?
Yeah.
If somebody said they were doing a tour for them and their girlfriend, and they logged in, and one camera pops up and it's them, and the other camera pops up and it's clearly the same room. It's an anime body pillow.
Ooh, that is a good question.
Would you be able to maintain your composure? Would you ask her questions? Would you pretend that she had answered?
I'd
Would you flirt with her?
You know what I would do, Eddie? I'd wait to see what the vibe was. I'd do my best to read the room.
I want to have a very specific go at this episode about one thing.
Yep.
So the title of this episode is We'll Always Have Paris, which isn't a great name for an episode.
Nope.
I would have called it the Mannheim Effect or something like that. But at the end of this, there's a bit where they're going to go... So on the way to the beginning of this episode, they're going for shore leave. And when they've resolved this issue, they're going to continue to the planet they're going shore leave. And they're going to go to a bar, like Troy, Riker and Picard share a moment where they talk about there's a really good bar that they want to go to called the Blue Parrot Club.
Mm-hmm.
Right? This episode could have been called We'll Always Have Parrots. Right? Which is a better name for an episode and a joke directly from an episode of Red Dwarf. So I am very, very upset with this entire thing.
Yeah. I don't like how everyone is really looking. Every single character is really looking forward to shore leave and talking about how excited they are for shore leave, and everything they discuss doing on their shore leave is way more interesting than anything that happens in this episode. I would love to see from fucking Enterprise shore leave.
Oh yeah, I would love. There should be an episode just called Shore Leave where nothing science fictiony happens. It's just like Riker and Picard get trashed.
Right. Right. So it starts and black screen, and then quick fade up to
opening line. Troy says he's hiding something. We cut to somebody playing Find the Lady.
No, here's how it goes. Right. We open, and we do a quick cut to a pair of eyes opening very suddenly. You may recognise the eyes, you may not. Don't worry, because the camera will start to zoom out and at the same time start to rotate slowly as we reveal the face of Commander William Riker. We get to the neck, we think, what's happening? We start to realise, oh, he's topless. As we pull out even further, he's draped in silk sheets. One woman on the left, one woman on the right. A guy in there's a as we get closer we realise there's a man who's draped over his midriff. But as we pull out even further, we realise that all three of those people are dead. And Riker turns to his left and sees like a bedside table with a still smouldering cigarette with lipstick on the filter, and he reaches down to press the comm badge to call for Captain Picard's help. Realizes that he obviously doesn't have one because he's naked, so he has to reach down and slowly pick up the dead body off of his torso, lay it down. And Picard walks in. First of all, Picard walks in, vomits into a bin, and then Data walks in and gets really excited that he's going to get to play Sherlock Holmes for a while. And Picard, in an almost delusional episode, thinks, I don't even want to question what's happened here. So he just reverts into his persona of Dixon Hill.
I like the idea that the three of them have to like load a bunch of bodies into like a wardrobe because they've got to pretend that they're normal.
Yeah.
And as they're like, because I like the idea, so like Riker's standing in front of the wardrobe and Troy's coming and she's talking to him and the door falls open and an arm sticks out. He shoves the arm back and closes it, and then Troy looks at him and goes, "You're hiding something."
I like the idea that this is they think, well, we have to get them out of here. We have to take them somewhere else. We have to like dump them into space, but they are the only three on shore leave. Everyone else is still on the Enterprise. But the only way to get up to the Enterprise is to beam up. So what they do is they say, well, we're going to bring our friends aboard.
Oh, we're going to weekend at Bernie's this shit.
There's a weekend at Bernie's situation where the six of them arrive on the transporter pad. And Chief Miles O'Brien, he knows. I mean,
it's not the first time he's beamed a corpse on board for Commander Riker. He's
a proud Rahman. There's not much he isn't willing to keep to himself.
Could you? Well, let me ask you an ethical question, Mark.
Go on.
Right. It's obviously wrong to interfere with the dead, but let me ask you a question. From a moral standpoint, not from whether you'd be into it, but just from a moral standpoint. If I use the replicator to make a corpse, so it was never alive, is there any issue with doing what I want with that?
I reckon there's probably a safety feature on the replicator that prevents you from making, and I'm going to choose my words very carefully here, an entire human body. But I reckon if you're happy enough to spend your spare time doing it, I reckon you could Frankenstein together a full corpse. Yeah.
All I've got in my head right now is, do you remember when you used to get TV adverts for like buy this magazine and you'll get part of the Titanic?
Yeah.
And over 38 weeks and £40,000, you'll put together this magnificent model. Now I'm just imagining that the Star Trek version of that is like, get a fingernail.
There's a play from a couple of years ago. I think is it called The Nexus or is it called The Net? But basically, it's I refer to it as Pedomatrix. But basically, the central question of it is if we were able to create virtual worlds so fantastical and real, but there were some people who, for example, are perfectly lovely in their everyday life, except they have the overwhelming urge to axe murder children to death. Should we let them do that in the virtual world? Is that enough of an outlet for them to? And it's an interesting moral question.
I would put forward the argument that it's only acceptable if the holographic simulation isn't completely realistic.
Or if it's got like a ditto face from Pokemon.
You don't want to successfully finish up your axe murdering and go computer end program and then realise you're just in the shops.
Yeah, there has to be someone. It has to. Yeah, when you do it, it has to constantly remind you that it isn't real. There has to literally be someone to whisper in your ear, "This isn't really happening." But still, enjoy yourself.
How frequently, well, if you lived in the world of Star Trek, how frequently would you say the sentence "computer end program" just to check?
Oh, I've never thought about that before. I've never said it out loud. Computer end program. Nope.
Nothing on my end.
Fine.
We're good.
We're all good. All right, smashing. I do, however, I do subscribe to the idea that we more than likely are in a simulation. It's because if there is a chance, I mean this is like the Batman line from Batman versus Superman. If there is a chance that the world is a simulation, it is almost certain that it is.
Yeah. It's the issue. Like, it's the only issue I have with that is if the world is a simulation, the number one thing that's going to get it turned off is if we reach a critical mass of people realizing that. So let's just not talk about it.
Yeah, there's a theory. I can't remember where I heard it. I think it might have been on the Infinite Monkey Cage, which is like a science podcast.
Love the Infinite Monkey Cage.
That's brilliant. But someone put, if I recall, it was, but someone put forward the idea that maybe the world, like maybe if you go to the top level of the simulation, people realize that if we upload our brains into a simulation, then we are able to basically do things a lot faster. So maybe there's some kind of natural disaster or climate change scenario that they have to fix, but they can't figure out how to fix it fast enough, so they upload their brains into a simulation to allow themselves to live on in that world in order to fix it. But then they, in their own simulation, realise that they need to start thinking faster, so they just go down into a further simulation of their own computing power to make them think. Basically, they'll get to a point where thought will just be one infinite point. But if there is a simulation and there's layers of it, there is a good chance that we are just about 50% of the way down.
Yeah, and it's
fuck me, this is a stoner episode, isn't it?
All I can hope is, if that is the case, that when they are going to turn it off, like, we get a reward. Like you know, like, it's like, oh, we're going to turn off the simulation.
One up.
Give everybody 2008 Linda Cardellini to do what they want with for the last 20 minutes of their life.
What does Linda Cardellini do with 2008 Linda Cardellini?
Look, she knows what she looked like. No, give her a round of harness.
Give her 2035 Anna de Armas.
But yeah, it's if we are in a simulation, it's not. There's not much point thinking about it because we're fucked. But I'm just annoyed that, like, if you are trying to fix climate change, I get, like, you need a simulation of a world where climate change is happening, so you need to have that running more or less. But you could have made it a bit more entertaining. Like, there are no, like, for example, I don't think it would throw off all your calculations too much, Mark, if the X-Men existed, right?
Yeah, or you could have made raindrops sound like screams.
Yeah.
Just like, you know how when you play the Grand Theft Auto games back on the PS2, and there's cheats that you can do that aren't really helpful, but they just make the game world a bit different, like moon gravity or something.
Yeah.
Give us one of that.
The best one, still the greatest one of those ever was What If mode on the PlayStation 1 Amazing Spider-Man game, which basically had a completely separate game, including like Mysterio had a goldfish in the bowl, and everything was, and all the voiceovers were Stan Lee rather than being.
All the hostages that if I recall, all the hostages in the game, the way that they were held hostage wasn't that they were tied up, it was that they couldn't stop dancing.
Oh yeah, they couldn't stop dancing, and if you, all of their dialogue was replaced with Bill Paxton's "Game Over, Man" speech from Aliens. Jesus, there's not a lot to talk about in this episode.
No, nothing really happens. It is annoyingly, it is kind of one of the very first actual character pieces.
Yeah,
we learn quite a lot about Picard in this episode. We learn his motivations for trying to become a starship captain. That is, and as subtle as it was, well, no, not particularly subtle, but as kind of small as it was, we learn more about Picard in this episode, I think, than we learn in the entire rest of season 1.
Yeah, no,
and for that, it is worth it. The problem is, it just isn't very interesting, or
it's some interesting like foundational character work, which if this had been slipped in as little bits throughout season 1 would have been fine.
Yeah,
but you kind of get this big dump of like, oh, he's married to his job, and it's like, yeah, but we kind of inferred a lot of this by this point. I will say there's 2 interesting things I think in this, which is we get the first Deanna Troi. Not he's hiding something, but you're hiding something, to the captain. And she's like, I would say this. Troy's been fairly spot on for like a run of like 4 or 5 episodes.
It's that conference that she went to.
That was it, though. That was the whole conference. Was maybe he's not hiding something, maybe he's hiding something.
That's it. Or do you think it was just a bunch of self-help gurus? Maybe the one who's hiding something is you.
It's you.
And she took that like quite literally. Like she didn't take that to mean as in oneself is the one who's hiding things. She was just like, oh, I'm using the wrong prefix or the wrong pronoun. The person who's hiding something is you.
Yeah, I think that's fairly spot on.
Yeah.
The other 2 things I did want to mention is one of the big things that comes up in this is that Paul Mannheim believes in the multiverse, which is a very out there belief to have in the world of Star Trek, where it's confirmed fact that the fucking multiverse exists.
Yeah.
Like, there's literally been an evil Spock and an evil Kirk. So well done on being. It's like that's like if there was an episode of like we had a TV show set in modern day and somebody goes, well, he's quite out there. He believes in the sun.
Yes.
Just a scientific fact. And my theory on what we haven't mentioned, there's 3 daters at one point because of the time looping, and they don't know, and there's a countdown, and he's got to put a thing in a hole at a certain time, but because they're all experiencing different parts of time, they don't know which one's the thing, and he works out it's the middle one, and there's not really an explanation given. My only theory on that is he's using his own internal clock cycle to know how long it is from when Geordie started the countdown for him.
That'll be why he mentioned about it being a constant.
Yeah, so he knows it syncs up, and that's the only. But like, it would have been nice to have the 1 sentence of dialogue to explain that.
The other way that they could have put it is that the one time exists in 3 states: the past, the future, and the present. So therefore, the one in the middle has to be the present.
Yeah.
Because the one who's ahead of him has to be the future, and the one who's behind him has to be the past. So therefore, he has to be the present.
Yeah, that's it. I think that's either of those would have worked as nice little sci-fi bollocks explanations, but we didn't get either.
No.
And I do think it's a bit unfair that Picard doesn't tell Riker the intimate details of his sex life, given how keen he's been to get that information from Riker.
Yeah.
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 But like it's like a nothing episode, but it's like it's structured like a proper Star Trek episode.
Yeah.
And that's at least something.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish they would. I feel like we riffed on it enough.
Yeah.
I feel like there's I feel like we got enough content.
Yeah, if you're thinking of watching this episode, I think genuinely this is one of the few times that I will say that I'm fully willing to say this episode of this podcast is more entertaining than the episode of Star Trek itself.
Possibly. I'll decide that when I listen back to it.
And also, just to throw this out there, I'm giving this episode 0 out of 5 stars, Mark, because there is a full set of scenes involving the transporter chief, and it is not O'Brien.
Yeah,
some other fucking prick. So,
Laura brought it up. She's like, "Where's Miles?"
All I've got written in my notes is, "How dare you stand where he stood?"
Yeah. Well, that was that, wasn't it?
Yeah. Hope you enjoyed this.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.